California or the States or whatever, but we come again to the environmental justice issues. Countries, first world countries, sending their wastes to Africa, to India, and to Egypt, and they are constructing their very huge planets, which are full of toxics in Egypt, and we can't prevent them. And people are not aware of the disaster.
But you're simply saying that is another little drip in the awareness of people here and the people they speak to, and drip by drip we have to make a cultural shift.
Would you please suggest an initial step for raising the awareness or even planting the awareness of the
Yes.
What should we start with? What should we start with?
Representations of nature. What kind of nature is being represented? What is the attitude towards it? And just beginning there, really. And then saying, how does that need to change? How would we critique it?
Should we start with explaining the dangers and explaining the threatenings that's going to happen later on? And should we start with this? This is the ending step, or this is the initial step for this?
I'm going to be saying in the next lecture, in a minute, something about the separation of science from arts and the way that has led to a disastrous separation of knowledge and specialisms that don't speak to each other, which is why we're here. So we all now need to be environmentalists. People like us studying in the arts, studying English literature, undertaking creative writing, we need to be scientifically informed, and we need to be environmentalists, and we need to learn from the scientists from whom we've been separated by our education system in the UK in particular.
Can I add a short comment to answer to Dina's question, where should we start? I think the first thing we need to do as English department and as people who attended these important lectures is to write down in Arabic what has been going on and what has been said and publish it. And Marwa is always, she has a team with her who reports the academic research circles lectures to the whole college. And I see this job as particularly crucial today because I would like all the college to listen to a summary of each lecture in Arabic. And I would like also to add, as an answer to Dina's question, you remember when I was in my talk on the symposium, I talked about how important for the scholar and the teacher to become an activist and to bridge the gap, to go across the university. So writing to newspapers, writing on Facebook, any of the information that we got from Professor Gifford, exploring some of these informations and writing poetry, writing criticism. I mean, as I said on the lecture, on my opening remarks, the problem is so complex, and any complex problem calls for a complex, solution and a complex momentum.
And we deal in art speech. So we deal in indirectness. So we're not dealing in confrontation. We ask questions. We ask the difficult questions. We ask the awkward questions. But we ask questions. We're not being didactic here. We're an educational system here. This is a questioning environment. It's not a didactic environment nowadays, I hope, So everything is up for questions. So we're asking questions. And you notice my newspaper letter was asking questions, Is the depth of the crisis such that we need to make compromises and actually flood some nature reserves in order to avoid them being flooded by sea level rise down the route?
May I add something?
Yep.
To answer Dina, I just quote your words, to get our hands dirty. We need to go into action, not only to listen to people or even to write. We need to lead our students to get their hands dirty, to go on like Dr. Marwa had just done, and to start planting, cleaning the area. We need to have this initiative, not only, as Dr. Magda said, to write and to raise awareness of our students. We are responsible for thousands of students in the university. So why not to start by them? And as Professor Gifford just said, to get their hands dirty, to get them involved in raising the awareness, to make the environment around them clean.
Yes. I mean, sometimes we know, because we deal in symbolism and so on, we know that actions can have a symbolic power beyond their actual power. So planting a tree in front of an administrator's office is just a little reminder that maybe we need to have some funding to plant some trees around the campus from the administrator's office. I mustn't go suggesting further ideas.
You're definitely right, and given Facebook as a tool now, I mean, you plant a tree and you picture it and you post it on Facebook and things will move. We had a hand up from Alison here.
Yes, Professor Terry, while you were talking about eco-criticism and those folks who are interested in green poetry, I was trying to recall any Arab poet who is interested or very concerned with green poetry, and I couldn't find anyone. How do you justify this?
Someone who...
Any Arab poet?
Oh, right.
I can't recall.
I'm the wrong person to ask.
Really? Okay.
Any Arab poets, any...
Yes.
Yes, well, before I came here, I asked Magda for a list of works that I could read, and my problem was finding them in English. And in fact, the one I found, my university library said they would buy, which was an anthology of Arab writing.
Any poets that you have?
Well, I can forward the list that I gave to Terry to you.
Yeah.
And I would strongly, if I may add to your answer, I would strongly suggest that we dig into our culture. Yesterday, and maybe today also, Professor Gifford mentioned the Chinese momentum in digging into their culture and finding eco-critical works and having eco-critical perspectives. And I always say we are layers and layers of civilizations. We have the pharaonic civilization, and we need to dig into this. And by the way, the other day I was looking up and I find a goddess named Bennu, B-E-N-N-U, which I think this goddess could serve as a title for our issue that we are going to publish hopefully together. Bennu is the goddess, is a female goddess of rebirth and fertility that we know nothing about. And we really need to find this. I also think that we really need to go back to the holy books and to our versions of the Bible and of the Quran. Because while I was thinking now, while Professor Gifford was talking now about the bees, and the importance of the bees, it struck me that the Quran has a chapter entitled the bees. So the Quran has a chapter entitled Abraham and entitled Muhammad and entitled Maryam, and it also has a chapter entitled the bees and entitled the ants. And we have nothing to say about this. So we really need to dig into our cultures and to find out, and so many hadiths and so many, we have the Islamic civilization, the Coptic civilization, the Pharaonic civilization, to actually make our hands busy working on them. So
this is exactly what I meant when I said that eco-criticism needs to find its local voice. Its national voice, its cultural voice, not to take the American model. I mean, one of the reasons why eco-criticism has been resisted in China is because they regard it as an American invention, which of course it was. Yeah, but of course there's a great Chinese tradition that wasn't called eco-criticism, but was respect for nature, of a spiritual kind and of a humble kind, which unfortunately the culture hasn't been able to follow in practice.
Dr. Sylvia has
I was just going to add to what you said, because this is actually what came to my mind while Professor Gifford was speaking. A lot of the holy texts have great references to the importance of the environment, and it also came to my mind that the ancient Coptic calendar is based on the agricultural year. Yes, the environment, the changes in the weather.
Very interesting.
So,
this is
yeah.
what we really need to
Yeah.
offer, and we need to give to the world. Yeah, definitely. And by the way, this university was the place for a writer, Radu Ashur, who is a wonderful writer who wrote a lot about Nakhil, the palm trees, and who's even her trilogy has a lot. I mean, lends itself to eco-critical readings. So, and if we dig into our culture and our tradition and even the contemporary writers' work, we will find a lot of things to be said.
Doctor, also we have a article lines of the Palestinian writer, actually. Nine.
Naomi Shihab Nine?
Yes.
This is an Arab American writer, yes.
Yes, but she also had that way of writing in using the nature of her writing a lot. She uses
Palestinian.
Yes, she is a Palestinian writer, so she is considered as one of the amazing writers that she used nature to express her culture and to express her roots that is still in America, although she is a Palestinian.
Thank you for that.
One of the poems, yes, he wrote a lot of poems about the culture of Upper Egypt, and he's so much interested in everything around him about the environment there and the traditions of the people there.
Yeah. See how many doors you have opened?
Well, this is very important
Doors into our
because
own
people
culture.
are now sort of translating these ideas into your own world, aren't you? And this is very important.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we need. I mean, something that wakes our appetite to dig into our own culture and find something new.
So I've got 25 minutes left if I finish at 4 o'clock, and I intend to finish at 4 o'clock because it's been a long day for everyone.
Oh,
And,
okay. So shall we start the TED Hughes?
Yes, let's go. Let's go.
Ready?
25
Okay,
minutes.
perfect.
One of the places to start, one of the starting points that one might make, and I don't think this has been done before actually, is to say of a writer, how can we chart the changes of their attitudes towards nature through their whole career, through their whole writing career. And I asked this question of the major post-war, post-Second World War English poet who became Poet Laureate of England, Ted Hughes. I asked the question, what are the stages of the greening? And he did become radically green at the end of his life. What are the stages of the greening of a writer? So I offer you this as a challenge. I can't think of any study that has actually asked that question. What are the stages, what have been the triggers that have shifted the attitude of this writer towards nature throughout the career? Yeah? And I've come up with 6, and this is going to be published in a book from Cambridge University Press in April, the stages. So this is going to be far too detailed actually, and I'm going to skip through this, but I'm just offering this as a kind of model really, and as a challenge really to other people to take up this kind of idea of looking at, because I know I've read everything, I've read the letters and the correspondence and the essays and so on. I can mark the shifts of Ted Hughes into 6 stages. So, yeah, and it coincides with this idea, because he was born in 1938 and died in 1998, that he coincides with this shift from the countryside becoming the environment in British culture. He coincides with that. So, well, here we are. These are some of the kind of cultural influences on British countryside changing into environment. Suddenly, you know, About Britain is a typical kind of title, of a certain era that has a certain pastoral view of Britain. But then suddenly there's the alternative countryside, and the next thing, there is Your Environment. This is the title of a journal which was started by Ted Hughes and friends in 1970. And then a book called The Environmental Revolution, which was reviewed by Ted Hughes. So you see how there's been that sort of subtle shift. And I think campaign for nuclear disarmament, the growth of Friends of the Earth, the development of Greenpeace, and Britain becoming a bird-watching nation, and the RSPB is the Royal Society for the Preservation of Birds, had an effect in people realising that their gardens were habitats and shifting from pastoral to post-pastoral, as it were, in their attitudes. Okay. Very interesting that at Mexborough Grammar School, maths was the weakest subject of Ted Hughes. I've looked at the school reports of Mexborough Grammar School in the historical record. English he was very good at school, but maths was his weakest subject. In fact, he had a detention. He was kept behind on a Friday for a detention for reading in the maths lesson. Now I think that in the British grammar school education, being good at English meant that he was bad at maths, because he knew he was going to go into the arts sixth form and not the science sixth form. English was in the arts sixth form, and there is a subliminal expectation, I think, that seep down, because of this division between arts and sciences at the age of 16 and beyond. There was a subliminal way in which, if you were good at the arts, it almost meant that you were bad at science and maths, you know. And I think there was some kind of psychological, subliminal effect taking place there. Okay. This is called The Two Sciences. It's the title of a lecture which became a book by C.P. Snow. The Two Cultures. The Two Cultures. And it's the arts culture and the science culture. This famous, it became a famous debate in British culture, the two sciences. The two cultures. The arts and science, the two cultures. And I think the two cultures is responsible, really, for why we're in the predicament that we're in now, as I've suggested earlier. And he was very much brought up in the two cultures. Even at the age of 16, the scientists were separated off from the art students for their 2 years of sixth form study. And in 1970, in the collection Crow, there are several anti-science references, like theorems wrenched men in two, because those theorems were deployed to make weapons in war. Theorems wrenched men in two. But his son was introduced to fishing by Ted Hughes, and as he got interested in fishing, he kept a tank in which he kept the river creatures on which the fish fed, so as to study the sources of food for the fish in the tank. And this led to him studying zoology at Oxford. He went on a research trip to study the Nile perch. The Nile perch had been introduced by colonialists and were eating all the native fish, and Ted Hughes went along as a research assistant with his son, who was studying. So he got drawn into science. You see this through his son's interest that developed from his own interest in fishing. It's very interesting. And his son became a researcher in salmonoids, that is salmon-type fish, at the University of Alaska at Fairbanks. So he ended up reading his son's papers, of course, out of interest. But he was also concerned about river pollution in Devon rivers. As a fisherman, the salmon could no longer come up the river to spawn because of pollution in the rivers. And so he began reading scientific papers on river pollution. Yeah? So he got drawn into reading science after having been brought up in the art side of that divide. And indeed, he took to reading the journal, popular journal, New Scientist, and I've only just discovered that he tried to charge his subscription fees for the New Scientist to the Poet Laureate's account because he regarded it as essential reading for himself as Poet Laureate. A poet needing to read the New Scientist and trying to charge it to his expenses as Poet Laureate. And so you've got him reading ecologists, but also being aware of hired scientists who were employed by the water authorities polluting the rivers to argue that they weren't really polluted. Hired science. So he's got a concept of hired science. Now, quite a sophisticated notion about science now, at the end of his life. Yeah? So these are my 6 stages. I think I'll skip that. Oh, just to give you an idea of what I have to deal with in the archives of Ted Hughes at Emory University in Atlanta and in the British Library. This is a marvellous piece of prose writing, unfinished, not prepared for publication, which I tried to transcribe in bringing... This is research, yeah? This is the difficulty of research when you're dealing with archives, and this is what I have to confront. Okay. Yes. Yes. In a poem, Egghead, which the Egghead is a nickname for an intellectual, but it might easily be a scientist, actually. So many a one has dared to be struck dead, peeping through his fingers at the world's ends or at an ant's head. Long, the eggshell head's fragility rounds and resists receiving the flash of the sun, the bolt of the earth, and feeds on the yolks dark and hush. The intellectual feeding on the inwardness of the mind and constructing eggshell protections in the mind to protect from the real raw experience of the flash. Notice the line break. The flash of the sun and the bolt of the earth. Feel the forces, the energies of nature. So civilization builds its protections, yeah, through culture and through science, perhaps, to resist feeling the raw forces of nature. In the poem Egghead. Okay, after he went to America, followed with Sylvia Plath, she was offered a job teaching at her old college at Smith College in Massachusetts. He came back from America an environmentalist. And in America, he wrote poems about England, interestingly enough, nothing about America when he was in America. And one of those poems that he wrote about England is about Holdernesse, which is a spur at the end of an estuary, the Humber estuary where Hull is, where the river Humber comes and enters the sea. And in that poem, just 2 lines, he mentions graves, dunghills, kitchens, hospitals. The unkillable North Sea swallows it all. The unkillable North Sea swallows all the pollution from culture upstream. Yeah? So in America, he's writing about British pollution in this poem, Mayday in Holdernesse. Later he writes a poem called The Last Migration, which is about creatures which have been eradicated, the Irish elk, the auroch, the passenger pigeon, the buffalo. Okay, I've mentioned Rachel Carson and the silencing of birds in Silent Spring. He read Rachel Carson whilst in America, and Rachel Carson was drawing attention to DDT chemicals being used in agriculture and killing all the insects and therefore all the birds and therefore producing a silent spring. If you don't know that work, that's a really crucial work for American and British environmentalism, and it's one of the turning points. In 1970, Ted Hughes started the very first environmental magazine in the UK. He did a series of these startings of magazines in which he persuaded friends to do the work, but he was really the ideas behind it. So David Ross, his friend, started the magazine with Hughes's review of Max Nicholson's book, The Environmental Revolution. So we're seeing here at stage 4 an explicit environmentalism in Ted Hughes. And in that review, he comes up with this incredible sentence: the subtly apotheosized misogyny of Reformed Christianity is proportionate to the fanatic rejection of nature. Right, okay. Reformed Christianity, he sees the Reformation in English history as a patriarchal rejection of nature, of treating nature as the other, to be conquered. And he calls it misogyny, right? So it's rejecting the other in nature and the female, and the ancient female goddesses of the earth, of nature, and so on. And he calls it a fanatic rejection of nature, and he sees this as a turning point in English culture, where the femininity of nature is actually rejected by a exploitative, patriarchal culture, which is Christian in its, taking the fruits of the earth as being provided for human sustenance above all things, really, and justifying the exploitation of the earth. So I say, by 1970, Hughes had a fully formed cultural theory of Western patriarchy, responsibility for the alienation from nature that was the current environment. Well, these things in folklore, yeah? Okay? And so one of the things that they sing is a very strange question and answer song called The Cutty Wren. And there are some strange figures in this song who answer each other. They've got very strange names. I've no idea what it means. In fact, I've no idea what it's about. Yeah? Oh, where are you going, said Mildred to Mulder. Oh, we may not tell you, said Vessel to Fall. We're off to the wood, said John the Red-Nosed. We're off to the wood, said John the Red-Nosed. And what will you do there, said Mildred to Mulder. Oh, we may not tell you, said Vessel to Fall. We'll hunt the cutty wren, said John the Red-Nosed. We'll hunt the cutty wren, said John the Red-Nosed. With what will you hunt her, said Mildred to Mulder. Oh, we may not tell you, said Vessel to Fall. With bows and we arrows, said John the Red-Nosed. With bows and we arrows, said John the Red-Nosed. Oh, that will not do, said Mildred to Mulder. Oh, what will do then, said Vessel to Fall. Oh, bloody great brass cannon, said John the Red-Nosed. Oh, bloody great brass cannon, said John the Red-Nosed. In what will you cook her, said Mildred to Mulder. Oh, we may not tell you, said Vessel to Foal. In pots and in pans, said John the Red-Nosed. In pots and in pans, said John the Red-Nosed. Oh, that will not do, said Mildred to Mulder. Oh, what will do then, said Vessel to Foal. Bloody great brass cauldron, said John the Red-Nosed. Oh, bloody great brass cauldron, said John the Red-Nosed. And what will you do then, said Mildred to Mulder. Oh, we may not tell you, said Vessel to Foal. We'll give her all to the poor, said John the Red-Nosed. We'll give her all to the poor, said John the Red-Nosed. Hey! End of. 4 o'clock.
Not leaving you go to Britain. And what are you going to do now? We really enjoyed every minute. That was really informative and amusing and very smooth. A lot of information in a very, very lucid manner. So really thank you very much for this. Can we take some questions?
Have we got time? Everyone's they're tired out.
No,
they need to go home.
Well, if you can take some questions, then maybe we can give a chance to people or comments, like 10 minutes if you...
People like to come up afterwards and ask questions, Magda.
So, okay.
Let them go, let them go. You've had a long day.
Okay, we'll let you go. And we really, really want to thank you from our hearts.
Pleasure.
And I'm sure a lot of synergies will come up of the visit. And we're looking forward to research and to collaboration among us, and we'll keep you informed. We will not bombard your inbox, but we will try to give you some good news about the things that are happening because of your beautiful presence here and because of your generosity in giving information. So thank you very much, Professor Gifford, and please join me.